if you provide invoice, if you give bill, then you will get back your money. Assessment, it is nothing but checking whatever you have calculated and given to the government will come and check once whether you have calculated properly. Place of supply along with the name of state. So where you are supplying, if you are supplying to other state, you have to mention that. A warm welcome to one and all. This is your Adasa, lecturer in Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence. We are discussing your last unit, that is unit number 5, Goods and Service Tax. In this, we are discussing topic called GST procedures. Now, under GST procedure, in today's session, the agenda for this session is introduction part, invoice under GST, contents of invoice, credit and debit note, composition of tax and returns. So these are the major topics we are going to discuss in today's session. Invoice under GST. As you know that the invoice consists of what? Your value, transaction value, along with the GST rate. Together we call it as invoice price. Content of invoice. Usually you know that what should be included in the invoice. If you go and buy any goods, so in the invoice, the major is what? The bill number, date, the name of the purchaser, the signature. If they have GST number, the GST number, amount in words, amount in numbers. So these are the major content of invoice. Credit and debit notes, composition of tax returns. These are the major agenda for your GST. And introduction part. Now, before we get into your all the invoice, the content of invoice, we'll understand what is GST as per invoice purpose. Now, generally speaking, invoice is a commercial instrument. Why do we call it as commercial instrument? Everybody works for what? Money. Now, if you provide invoice, if you give bill, then you will get back your money. Now, issued by a seller to the buyer. Usually the invoice is given by whom? Seller. To whom? Buyer. It identifies both the trading parties and list. Describe the quantities as the items sold. Shows the date of shipment and mode of transport, prices and discount, if any, and the delivery and payment terms. All these concepts will be included in your invoice. Now, in certain cases, especially when it is signed by the seller or seller's agent. Now, seller is a owner actually. Owner can't sign on each and every bill. One accountant will be there, our sub-managers will be there, selling manager. The selling manager can sign the invoice copy. Usually the accounts head will sign the invoice copy. Now, an invoice serves as demand for payment and becomes document of title when paid in full. So these are the information usually we have for invoice purpose. Now, along with that, in the invoice, we have under the GST regime, an invoice or tax invoice means the tax invoice refers to Section 31 of CGST Act 2017. Now, this section mandates the issuance of an invoice or a bill of supply for every supply of goods or services. It is not necessary that only persons supplying goods or services need to issue an invoice. See, it is not a rule or mandatory that the person who serves the goods, that person only should create the invoice. Now, the GST law mandates that any registered person buying goods or services from an unregistered person needs to issue a payment voucher. See, he is an unregistered dealer. Instead of invoice, what will come? The payment voucher, because confirmation of payment. Usually the payment is done online. Instead of online, if they made cash payment, then what will be the proof for the payment? The payment voucher will be considered as proof. Next, There is no format prescribed. See, for invoice, the contents are compulsory, but format is not compulsory. Why? Because every company have its own logo. The logo will differ. Every company has their own invoice format because few information required by the government that is mandatory that should be there on the invoice. Additional information which are required by the owner also, required by the seller also. They need the mobile number of the buyer, so they will add that column. The seller may need the address of the buyer, they may add. The seller may need the bank account detail of the buyer, they may add. All these details, additional details, if they want, they can modify. That is the reason invoice, there is no prescribed format. There are certain contents are there, as I told you, GST number, your GST calculation, your selling price, and date. All these are mandatory by government, but remaining rest of the things, as per your requirement, you can design your invoice. So design can be red, in the color of red, white, anything it may be. Now, what are the contents of invoice? The first one, name, address, and GSTN number of the supplier. This is compulsory. Along with that, consecutive serial number in multiple series containing alphabets or numerals or special character like hyphen or dash and slash symbolized as and respective, and any combination thereof unique for the financial year. As I told you, everything should be in numbers as well as font. Now, date of its issue. This is very important. Why? Because you have to file your GST monthly, quarterly, half yearly, or yearly. Based on that, the date matters a lot. Why? Because based on the date, your returns can be filed. Next, name, address, and GST number or UIN number if registered of the recipient. See, as I told you, name and address of the customer and as well as the GST number of that supplier is compulsory, mandatory. Along with that, name and address of the recipient and address of delivery along with the name of the state. For example, the goods are supplied directly to their place. The responsibility is taken by the seller. Then the address and state, pin code, everything must be there on the invoice price. Then HSN code of goods or accounting code of services. So every industry for their particular commodity or product, they make some unique codes, unique numbers. That identification numbers should be there on that particular invoice. Description of goods or services. Very simple. Some invoices comes with description. It is not compulsory, but some invoices comes with description. Now, for example, if you go with any medical thing, then your medical thing, for example, if you go to the doctor, he will mention the tablets. Along with tablets, below that, he will write like this. So what it says, you have to take tablet in the morning, afternoon no need to take, again you have to take in the night. Sometimes they will give like this. You have to take tablet only in the afternoon, no tablet in the morning, no tablet in the evening. So that is called prescription or description. The description should be a part of your invoice. Now, quantity in case of goods and unit. For example, you are selling 10 units. You have to mention that how many number of units you are selling. The quantity has to be mentioned. Total value of supply of goods and services. What is the total price? The invoice is made. The main purpose is what? To mention the price. Then, taxable value of supply of goods or services are both taking into account the discount or abatement. For example, you are giving any discount or abatement, that has to be mentioned. And the next one, rate of tax. There are different rates of taxes are there, 18%, 28%, 4%, or 9%. The tax rate has to be mentioned. Amount of tax charge, you have to calculate the tax and the tax value should be mentioned. Place of supply along with the name of state. So where you are supplying, if you are supplying to other state, you have to mention that. address of delivery where the same is different from the place of supply. Where you are delivering and the place of supply has to be mentioned. Whether the tax is payable on reverse charge mechanism. As I told you, RC, reverse charge mechanism, RCM. Whether you are selling that particular product on RCM basis or reverse charge mechanism basis, that you have to mention that. Once you are done, credit and debit note. Usually what happens, there may be chances of purchase return or sales return. So in case of purchase and sales return, you have to show the debit note as well as credit note. Now, in cases where tax invoice has been issued for supply and subsequently it is found that the value or tax charged on it, that invoice is more than what is actually payable or chargeable, where the recipient has returned the goods, the supplier can issue a credit note to the recipient. So when the credit note is issued, for example, whatever your calculation you made, it is overvalued or undervalued, or whatever the recipient is there, they have collected and he feels that he found that the goods is damaged, then what he will do? He will return the goods. So for all this, you have to pass a credit note. Credit note means your total sales will be reduced. Once you are done with this, the next part will be called as credit and debit note, the same part only. You learn what is credit note, the reverse. The reverse will be, we call it as debit note. So one person has to give credit note, another person has to give debit note. Why? Because the buyer also has to file the return, the seller also has to file the return if both are registered for GST. So one person has to show it as sales return and another person has to show it as purchase return. The next one, what does assessment under GST mean? See, in income tax also we have like self-assessment, yeah, regular assessment, scrutiny assessment, Caesar assessment, all kind of assessments are there. Summary assessment, these kind of assessments are there in income tax. Similarly, same kind of assessment is available in GST also. Assessment, it is nothing but checking. Whatever you have calculated and given to the government will come and check once whether you have calculated properly, whether you have paid more or you have paid less. That is called as assessment. Now, as I told you in the last unit, in this particular topic, the assessment procedure is more important. Now, types of assessment under GST, you have a self-assessment, provisional assessment, scrutiny assessment. There are three types of assessment. Self-assessment, yourself you will do. Every registered taxable person shall themselves assess their taxes payable and furnish a return for each tax period. That is called self-assessment. If you have a basic knowledge about GST and 90% of the work is done through online itself, if you just insert the code or asset or the particular goods number, automatically the tax is calculated because prefixed means your auditor already they have fixed the percentage, automatically it is calculated. Even the GST calculation also, your output tax minus input tax, if there are any input tax credit is there, it is deducted and final answer will be given to you. That is self-assessment. Now, in that self-assessment, first one, when your self-assessment are not satisfied, the cases are conduct audit of the taxpayer, start special audit procedure, inspect, initiate demand and recovery provisions. These things can be done when your self-assessment doesn't go well. Now, second one, who cannot opt for composition scheme? As I told you, what is composition scheme? So there are multiple tax rates are there. If you want to wish to go for single tax rate, then you can go for composition scheme. And there is a limit also. Your turnover must be 75 lakh and in some state the turnover must be 50 lakhs. So who can opt for composition scheme? The following people cannot opt for composition scheme. Manufacturer of ice cream, pan masala or tobacco cannot come under composition scheme. The next one, person making interstate supply, they cannot go for composition scheme. Casual taxable person or non-resident taxable person. Non-resident taxable person, already I told you, he is not a regular seller, regular manufacturer. He does once in a year, twice in a year. That we call it as non-resident taxable person. Now, what are the conditions for availing composition scheme? This already we have learned actually. No input tax credit can be claimed if you go for composition scheme. The dealer cannot supply goods not taxable under such as alcohol. Alcohol things cannot come under your composition scheme. Then, what are the conditions for availing composition scheme? Already you know that the taxpayer has to pay tax on normal rate. If a taxpayer person has different segment of business such as textile, electronic, accessories, grocery, etc. under the same PAN, they must register all such business under the scheme collectively or opt out of scheme. Usually the composition scheme, the tax is calculated on turnover, selling price. Next, what are the advantages of composition scheme? Assume that there are certain conditions are there. If you're doing interstate sale, you cannot go for composition. For alcohol things, tobacco and all, you cannot go for composition scheme. If you opt for composition scheme, what are the advantages? The advantages are lesser compliances. Compliances means what? Giving reasons, giving documents, giving all the procedures are very less. Limited tax liability and high liquidity as taxes are at lower rate. Usually the tax rate, we did one problem that is 0.75%, 0.5% we calculated similarly. Now, what are the disadvantages of your composition? Limited territory. As I told you, interstate sale, you cannot go for composition. No input tax credit available. You cannot claim your input tax credit. The taxpayer will not be eligible to supply non-taxable goods. You cannot sell the agriculture like non-taxable goods. You cannot sell. Now, the next point will be what records must be maintained under GST. See, for example, you need to assess your document. What are the documents you are supposed to keep? Usually, goods and service tax is tax reforms that will eliminate India's major indirect taxes. All these part, you know this actually. You can read it once. Usually what records you have to keep? It is simple meaning actually. You have to keep the records like all your invoices, all your purchases, input your claiming means all your purchase bills, everything you have to keep and you have to file regular basis. The filing copies should be in a proper manner. What interest in charged? So if you paid late, so interest at 18% per annum will be there for delay in payment of GST. Now, what amount is subject to interest chargeable? So all these are not much important actually because this thing will not come for examination. As I told you earlier, for your reference, you can read it once. Next, what is the period of interest? So what is the period of interest? Now, as per section, the period of interest will be from the date following due date of payment to the actual date of payment of tax. For example, your due date is 1st October. You paid 31st October. This 1 month your tax will be calculated, interest will be calculated. Along with interest, remember you have penalty also. Interest, what I have mentioned, 18% per annum. Almost it comes 1.5% per month. Now, what is the GSTN? Service tax network. Now, this is also only theory part, nothing important for your examination. For your reference, you can read it once. Next, structure of GST. Now, in this also, it is not much important. As I told you, only for your theory purpose, you can read it once. This is important actually. Now, structure of GSTN. Central government shareholding is 24.5, state government holding is 24.5, HDFC holding is 10%, HDFC Bank holding is 10%, ICICI is 10, then NSC Strategic is 10, and last LIC Housing is 11. Total their holding is how much? 100%. Hope you are clear. Next, what is GST returns? This is the most important part now. What are the GST returns? You have to see how much is your purchase, how much is your sales, what is the output tax, what is the input tax. Do calculation. Already we have done input tax credit. The same thing you have to follow here. Now, how many returns are there under GST? There are how many returns? 13 returns are there. Now, the number starts from like GST, Goods and Service Tax Return 1, 3B, 4, 5, 5A, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 08. So then ITC 04. These are your returns under GST. However, all returns do not apply to all the taxpayer. Taxpayer file returns based on the type of taxpayer, type of registration obtained. Then, eligible taxpayer, that is with turnover exceeding rupees 5 crore, are also required to also file a self-certified reconciliation statement form. Yeah, see, your turnover exceed 5 crores means along with your return, you have to file a reconciliation form that comes under GSTR 9C. Hope you are clear? Yes. Along with that, the due date, usually quarterly and monthly based on your turnover, it differs actually. Quarterly filing of GSTR 1, annual turnover if is up to 5 crores. Up to 5 crores, the returns are quarterly, Jan to March, April to June, quarter. Now, the dates are 13th April and 13th July. Once the June month is ended means you have 13 days to file your returns. Next one, the remaining due dates are month-wise. Jan, see all the months they have given. Jan, 31st Jan ends, you have 11 days to file. 11 days, 11, 11, 11, 11. All the years, you can make it as 2025. For the next year, you can make it as 2026. Like that, your due dates can be differs. Similarly, for everything, you have to go what? Just remember, every month, the 11th of next month will be your due date to file your returns monthly. And the return will be GSTR 3B is your return. Next, after this, quarterly filing, Jan to March, 22nd or 24th April, 22nd or 24th July will be your due date. Now, so many due dates are there to remember. As I told you, monthly it is very simple, 11th of next month. Then when we did quarterly, it is nothing but you have to wait till 13 days, 13th of that month. Again, monthly filing of GSTR 3B, again, 20th of each month. This is all about your filing of returns, your assessment of GST, and all the basic concept of corporation supply. Hope you are done with your GST topic. This much only you are supposed to remember and prepare for your examination. Nothing much for your examination. GST actual, it is in depth actually, but whatever we touched, we thought, that is only for your examination concern. Clear? If you go and do all the classes on GST, particular topic, particular section, it takes almost 1 year to complete because each section in depth we have many things to learn. But for examination, they have made very brief actually. That much only we can help you to get succeed in your examination. Thank you.